take a second and say, welcome.
Hello. Welcome, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello, everybody.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. We're a radio show and we broadcast on CIVL on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley. CIVL is located on the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation.
Yes, it is.
Now, Unlocking Your Truth is also a podcast, and you can catch us on all major podcasting platforms. And if you go to drlesliephillips.com, you can see all of our past episodes of the show. We've been doing the show for about 6 years, and so there are many different episodes under that general umbrella of metaphysics and spirituality. Now, another fun thing that we like to do is we pre-record the show before it airs on CIVL. And when we do that, we open up a chat room. And the chat room is on Facebook in the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group. And there's a second chat room, which is, you can access it on my YouTube channel, which is just Dr. Leslie Phillips YouTube channel. So when we do the show, both of those chat rooms are managed and operated by Corey.
That's me.
He reads all your comments and your questions, and then he brings those questions for my attention. And so as someone who's a member of one of those two groups, you get to watch the show on video as well as listen to it. And you get the content ahead of time. And you get to participate live in the show.
Yes, even me.
Or you also can suggest what topics you'd like us to talk about. And over the years, we have talked, it's hard to find a subject that we haven't talked about.
That's my job, and that's the hardest part about this whole show, is trying to find a topic that we haven't spoken about.
Yeah. We've done lots of episodes on meditation. We've done lots of episodes on psychic abilities, on spirit guides, on chakras, on intuition, and you name it. But Corey did come up with a topic today that I don't think we've talked about before. Would you like to introduce the topic, Corey? Tell us what it is.
Sure. It's the good and evil philosophies. It's still valid today. I mean, when you look back in history, there's been such a spiritual and an actual physical battle going on between these two, I'm going to call them that. And our society has, I mean, if you look at our society, even in the past 100 years, how radically it's changed as far as our morals, our concepts of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil. So, you know, I'm just wondering what the good and evil philosophy holds for us today. Is there any pertinent issues there? Does sin exist? Can I actually do evil? You know, do I have the evil angel and the good angel on my shoulders?
The devil.
So those are, yeah. And I just want to mention, I probably we're going to have a small turnout today, because we've gone from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock again in our broadcast. So I know I mentioned, I'm not sure, did you mention in your email, Dr. Leslie, when you sent it out?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing our pre-recording at 1 o'clock Pacific time, but traditionally the time we do it's been 7 o'clock Pacific time. And so we have gone back to 7 o'clock to catch the pre-recording.
Yes, because we
Okay,
were
right.
away.
Yes. So that's the topic, Corey. Is it good and evil? And you
Yes.
mentioned the word sin there, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, sin. I mean, one of the ways that I look for the show is I go in and look at keywords and what's happening. And I looked at sin to see what sin was all about, and this came up when I was looking at sin as a keyword. And so a lot of that is pertinent and in this discussion, I think. I mean, this discussion is really wide, and I'm sure we could go forever on it. But yeah, sin was also involved in there.
Right. A few different perspectives. And I have read or I have heard that the original translation, the original meaning of sin in the Christian Bible was actually just out of alignment. So it wasn't this bad, evil, wicked thing that you had done. It was just, are you in alignment or are you out of alignment? And very much in my teachings and working with people, that's something we talk about often. You know, I'm seeing that you're in alignment with your higher being or you're out of alignment with your higher being.
I can't recall. I mean, I've read the Bible quite a bit, and I can't recall if the Bible talks about original sin. But I think that might be a religious concept.
Well, I think the idea of being evil and sinning, at least in Christianity and in the Christian Bible, was created as a means of controlling people. You know, of being able to pass judgment on people and control them. Yeah. So anyway, I like my definition or that definition better of sin, which is just, are you in alignment with your higher being or are you out of alignment? Because if you're in alignment, then you're going to feel good. You're going to feel in the right place at the right time. Everything's going to feel aligned. If you're out of alignment, then something's going to feel off. And what is the solution to that? Get back in alignment, make a course correction, make an adjustment. All right, so, and then this topic, good and evil, maybe we can come at it from a few different perspectives, Corey.
I think so.
And I guess one perspective that I would look at it from is a spiritual perspective versus a human perspective.
Uh-oh.
And where do ethics come from? Do they come from spirit or do they come from human minds? And the answer is human minds. Okay, so ethics are very human. Ideas of right and wrong are very human, right? Judgment is very human. These are things that we kind of do to ourselves, pass judgment on ourselves, pass judgment on each other, decide what's right and wrong, what's good and evil. Whereas from a spiritual perspective, there is no ethics. There is no ethics. There simply is. And all experiences are valid, and all experiences can be used to expand consciousness.
Yeah. But now, just to be clear, you're talking spiritual, not religious.
Yeah, I'm not talking religious. I don't really talk religious. Yes. Yeah, so there are differences between body and spirit, right? You in your human form and you, the higher being. And one of the differences that as humans have ethics, but as spirit, we don't have ethics. There are no ethics, no judgment, just learning. Does that make sense to you, Corey?
Well, it makes sense to me. I get that. Yet, when you look at especially I guess in Christianity, there's that the myth that 1/3 of the host of heaven was sent to hell because they chose to be they chose Satan as their leader as opposed to Christ as the leader per se. So, again, if you're looking at the Christian story, there is a belief that there is some value or ethic in the pre or afterlife.
Well, and then that begs a related question, which is, what is heaven and hell? And heaven and hell are self-created realities. You create your reality. And so you can create hell on earth for yourself, or you can create heaven on earth for yourself in terms of the living of your life and how it feels to you. Whether it feels like an in alignment, positive life, or whether it feels like an out of alignment, negative life. And depending on what you believe, if you believe that you are evil and bad and wicked and have done terrible, terrible, dreadful things, and if you believe in the afterlife and that you will be banished to hell, well, you will get the experience of that reality when you pass away, but not because that is a fundamental truth of the universe, but because that is a projection of your own consciousness, because you are believing that. If you believe that you've been good and that you're going to live out eternity on puffy pink clouds with, angels in pink fluffy dresses, then that's what you'll get. As a temporary projection of your own consciousness. So you create your reality. So, the question that you pose, it's almost like a debate, isn't it? Is good and evil, the philosophy, relevant to our reality in modern times? Another perspective is to say, it depends on the person, and if you believe in good and evil, then it's relevant to you.
Well, that's what I was, that's what I was thinking, because in today's, say 50 years ago, people were very, very concerned about whether they were going up or whether they were going down. Now people are more concerned about where they're going, not in the position of up and down, but what is it going to be like after this life? I mean, I think there's more of an awareness that is happening in our societies about that. Yes, there's still the old, hell and heaven thing, but there's more. I meet more and more people that just believe that there is something after our life, but it's different. And more people believe in reincarnation that I've been meeting. And it's like 50 years ago, you probably wouldn't run into anybody who was really believing who was believing in the concept of reincarnation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess what you're saying is that there's been an expansion in our consciousness.
I think so.
Sure, there has over the last 50 years. But I think that if you traveled around the world, you would find quite a few pockets of people who still believed in good and evil, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely.
Depending on the culture, the country, the religion, and so on.
Yeah. Well, even in television, I remember a show called Laugh-In, and one of the characters in Laugh-In just was always saying, "The devil made me do it," like. It just, but you don't hear, you very rarely hear the concept of the devil in our society as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess we have our own versions of the evil forces, which might be more like politicians or magnates in charge of global multinational companies, or
Facebook, Google. We didn't say anything. No,
we have a modern version of that, don't we? It's
Yeah.
not the devil, but it's a version of the devil. It's those evil ones that have, seek to control us and manipulate us and do their bidding. So there is a version of it in the collective consciousness.
Yeah, and then I think one of my favorite quotes from religious sources are that the number one thing the devil tries to do is make you believe that he doesn't exist. Like, so you have that concept out there as well, but I haven't heard that from anybody in a long time either.
Right. So listeners, you're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And tonight's subject is good and evil. And, I don't know, does it exist?
The topic is
yeah, is that a philosophy that we should subscribe to? It's definitely not a philosophy that I subscribe to. I would be more neutral, really, rather than judgmental. And I think that when we do things that are out of alignment, the idea is that we can learn from them. And by, moving into that out of alignment state, and by getting negatively experienced results from that, that we can correct ourselves to an in alignment state.
Definitely. Well, now it's time to align with a break.
All right. We'll be back after these messages, people. Welcome back, everybody, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello. And
what are we talking about today, Corey?
You saving your voice today or what?
Yeah.
I'm
struggling to talk about good and evil.
Oh no, there's lots of stuff coming. Don't worry.
To be honest with you, I guess, what other angle could we take this from?
Well, I have a couple of questions that I can ask you on my part. And today we're talking about, is the good and evil philosophy still valid today? And so when I was brought up in the Catholic Church, so there's a definite there was a definite overbearing of good and evil in my life for the first, I don't know, 15 years maybe or so. And then it just started to dissipate slightly. But even until maybe 15 years ago, I still had that, am I doing the wrong thing here? Am I following a path that's actually evil, like against all the beliefs that I've ever had? And is this wrong? Is this right? I mean, it just sit there just on the edge. And now it's not there anymore, because I'm firmly ensconced in a different belief system. And I think what I did in developing this topic, I put it under belief systems. I put it under the general umbrella of belief systems, as opposed to spirituality, which some people might look at, but more of a belief system and what are people believing.
Well, and you mentioned something there, really about your childhood religious programming. And many of us really our beliefs are programmed in from an early age. And so we get our ideas of good and evil from outside of ourselves. So people have a tendency to believe what their culture dictates, what the religion that they're born into dictates, what their parents dictate, until you question that, and deprogram yourself from those beliefs that you were given as a child, which actually aren't your beliefs at all. So that's really what you're describing, is your version of that journey, isn't it, Corey?
More or less, yes. Yeah. Brian has something interesting to say on that. And he says, I've heard that's why there are many ghosts, that they stay behind because they're afraid of that afterlife judgment and where they may be sent. So they refuse to see or move into the light.
Yeah, quite possible. But meanwhile, ultimately, what is there? I mean, you may temporarily make a projection of consciousness that looks like Judgment Day, but that's purely based on your own projections. But ultimately, all that is there for you is love and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. In Conversations with God, the third, or is it the fourth volume of that, by, who is that by, Dr. Leslie?
Neil Donald Walsh.
Neil Donald Walsh. He talks, the book is about death. And he says that, he says he had a vision, or he was given a vision of what death is like. And he was walking down a corridor. And as he walked down the corridor, on both sides of the corridor, he saw pictures of his life. And that brought about a knowledge within himself of what he thought his afterlife, his immediate afterlife should be. And he said that whatever you think it's going to be, that's what it's going to be until you come back again.
Well, or until your guides and your helpers lead you out of that fantasy, lead you out of that projection, into a different phase of the afterlife.
Yeah. So what was your, when you were young, what was your base concept?
Well, I wasn't brought up really in any religion, but I guess I was given ideas of good and bad. The biggest program I got from my dad was do not tell a lie. The worst thing that you could possibly do is tell a lie. But you know what? I still have that today. Maybe not in, but I think being authentic and real and honest is a positive attribute that I would still choose to have.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't suffer from the keep that going and you're going to go to hell and burn in everlasting fire. That wasn't part of your upbringing.
No, that wasn't part of my upbringing. No, I can't say it was.
That's very hard to do when you think about. Yeah, well, think about that. Think about children. Like, most of us are a little older now, but think about these poor kids that go to school in a very staunch Christian atmosphere, that are being told, you must be, from the age of 5 or 6 years old, you must be good, or otherwise you're going to go to hell, and you'll never see your parents again, and you never see your brother and sister again, and you'll never see God. Like how that can modify a child's ideals and the fear that could be hanging over that child. The other side of that, it can help stimulate them into a path of goodness and kindness as well, in one way.
If it's real,
yeah.
Because maybe it wouldn't be. I mean, I was just thinking about my childhood, and I mean, what programming did I get about good and bad? Well, that you had to work hard, you had to study, and you had to get good grades. That was good. Not kicking up a fuss, being quiet and proper and, sitting in the corner. Well, that was good. Making a fuss, that's probably bad, or not doing well at school. Well, that's bad. So that might have been some of my good, bad programming from when I was
again, that's where original sin comes in too. I mean, original sin, the concept is that a child comes into this world with sin on its soul, and it has to be baptized right away. Otherwise, if it dies, it can go to a place where it's not so nice just because it wasn't baptized, it wasn't dunked in a little bit of water. And
well, and I think, you know, I mean, I guess you're talking about some people's concept of what baptism is, but there's also another concept of it, that it is kind of like a ritual, or it is a commitment to it is a ritual or an event that marks the clearing of karma, so that the child can actually, or the person being baptized can actually begin with a clean slate, can actually be renewed and start anew and create their reality without baggage.
True. That's an interesting concept. One of the ideas that came to me when I was looking at this topic and how our society's changed. If you look at homosexuality or lesbianism or any of the, you know, LBJ, whatever the is, 50 years ago was illegal and you would go to jail. But today it's accepted in. I'm not going to go into the argument of who accepts it and who doesn't accept it, but on a generality, there's an acceptance of this. So it's interesting how something like that, again, was looked at as evil. It wasn't looked at as, oh, they're doing something wrong. It was looked at as evil. You were possessed. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was, and you know, some countries would. And still some countries will kill people, will put them to death if they practice homosexuality in any manner.
Right. So it was judged to be bad at that time, is what you're saying, and now it is accepted in mainstream society. But from a spiritual perspective, it was always accepted. From a pure spiritual perspective, where good and evil and bad and judgment doesn't exist, then, you know, it's only the humans and from the human perspective that it gets judged.
Sure.
Made to be bad.
Yeah, true. Another one is psychic abilities. I mean, they were putting people to death that showed any sort of psychic ability back in, you know, anywhere back to the witch trials in Salem and those things. But that was rampant across the world. Witches were looked down upon and killed.
Yeah, that's true.
So they'd be coming for you, Dr. Leslie.
Yeah. Oh, I have some past lives like that, believe you me.
I can imagine. So those are some of the things that came to me with regard to this topic. Brian says, I believe the original meaning of sin was to go against yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Brian. Exactly. So, exactly, to go against yourself, to be out of alignment with your higher being. And then that was taken by the power structures of the day and morphed into a version that allowed them to control people by ideas of good and evil and sin. Exactly right.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's about all I had to speak on the subject.
Okay, well,
because it doesn't seem to be an overly popular subject with folks.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Brian, but folks, just please put your questions down, your comments. Nothing is anything's accepted. But I'll read you Brian's question here, which is quite apropos, and it just shows he's been listening and he doesn't forget. And he says, Dr. Leslie, I'm kind of curious as to what you mentioned a few weeks ago about Hitler not being allowed to incarnate again for some time due to, I believe, the evil acts he committed. So I thought we pre-planned our lives to what we would experience. And I thought some of these events were meant as experiences to evolve humanity, showing us where he needed to grow, where we need to grow. So what happened with Hitler? Did he just go off on his own, deviate from his path, and cause a lot of unnecessary suffering? I'd like your take on that, please.
Oh, okay, I'll take a look at that, and I'll go into trance to take a look at that. So let's give you a read on that. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that he came in with very good intentions, actually, to make life better for people. To find ways to make life better for people. And I believe he got out of alignment with his own higher being. He did dabble in the occult, actually. And so one of the pieces of information that I'm getting is that he, it looks like he was a little bit possessed or affected by non-benevolent beings. So that looks like that's one thing that happened to him. Yeah, I'm seeing that he lost, I mean, he basically lost it, that he was completely out of alignment with his own higher being and his own, you know, plan for his lifetime. So I think yes is the answer to that. Yeah, that's a short, sweet answer. Yeah. You know, thinking about good and evil, Corey, if I think about where and how is that relevant to the work that I do, I would say in working with people, a lot of people, and maybe it, you know, it's as a result of their upbringing, a lot of people do have a core belief perhaps that equates to the idea that I'm bad, or I'm unworthy, or I'm not good enough. And, you know, I work with those people to help them let go of those beliefs so that they're no longer creating their reality from those beliefs. Anyway, folks, you're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and
that's me.
You know, we're open to any and all questions, really. In the second part of the show, we just say, listeners, ask your questions. You can ask about something that the topic we've been talking about, which today is good and evil. But you can, you can ask about anything. Actually, I just thought of another place where that kind of comes up. And often people will, they will be considering other people as being bad or evil. So either themselves, right, or other people, you know, to point the finger and blame and judge. This one is a bad one. They said this to me. They said that to me. And while we're doing that, we're in a state of resistance. And we're in a state of non-acceptance. And we're kind of stuck. And so I think this idea of good and bad, from a spiritual perspective, keeps people stuck. Being in judgment keeps people stuck. And it creates separatism, you know. And so to move on from a situation which is problematic for you, like you're not getting on with your boss or this or that, then a really good way to get out of that is to move out of judgment and to move into acceptance. Because as soon as you're in a state of acceptance, then you're in a state of flow. When you're in a state of resistance and judgment, you're not in a state of flow. I'm getting the signal that we need to go to a break.
Yes,
We'll
we
be
do.
back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning into Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Yes. You know, I just want to make one more comment before we go to more questions from the listeners, and that is, people would say, you know, if there was no religion, if there was no evil and good, and people being banged upon to be good, that the world would be in a bad state. But I think people inertly are good. I think people are inertly are want to do nice things. They just position themselves or get positioned into places where sometimes they don't, you know. And fear, I think fear is the big stimulus for that, the big stimuli for that. However, I think fear, a lot of the fear that we experience is taught to us in a way. We're, you know, you gotta study so you can get a good job. You gotta, you know, get a good job so that you can earn money. And if you in order to have a family, you need to be able to support them. You know, as a man or whatever. You know, and as a woman, you have to have kids, and so all those things that come into play in teaching cause fear in your life. I think it's the fear that causes people to do things that aren't necessarily quote unquote good. That's my opinion.
Cool.
I'm glad you think so.
One perspective is to just think about it as a big game, isn't it? The game of good and evil, the game of dark and light, the game of positive and negative. And that kind of is the game that we play on Earth, the game of positive and negative, the game of polarities, the game of opposites. And that is how we learn. We learn by going in and out of balance between two polar opposites. And we master this reality by learning how to balance those opposites. And so we create these games, these experiences, these plays in our lifetimes where, you know, one lifetime I'm the evil genius, then another lifetime I'm, you know, Mother Teresa, or, you know, some version of that. And it's all information and experience for spirit, which is love and light, to come down into this density and this world of opposites and bring that light and love all the way down to the densest realm of existence, where the oneness is split into opposites.
Yeah. Brian, one more comment from Brian. Brian says, yes, people seem to use the circumstances of their lives as some sort of barometer as to whether they are good or evil or doing enough good in their lives. It's more or less what I was saying there as well.
Do we have any other questions from our listeners?
Yes, we do.
Good.
Yes. There's somebody other than Brian on the line.
Oh, it'll take them a few weeks to catch on that we've changed the time, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So SG says, hello, I have an off-topic question. I've dealt with womb issues as a woman for a long time. Can I get a quick body scan to know what is wrong? I thought it came from my gut issues, but I don't know.
So she said womb issues, W-O-M-B, womb.
Yeah, W-O-M-B, W-O-M-B.
So womb issues on a physical level, I'm assuming. So I'll look at it from an energetic perspective. SG, what kind of issues? Is it fibroids or something like that? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of sort of clogging energy around that area of your body, dense clogging energy. I'll give you a little bit of healing to move some of it off. And when I do that, I'll look and see if I can see what it is or where it's coming from. It looks like also foreign energy, and it looks like there's this idea of you not really owning that part of your body for yourself. Like it's something that's owned by other people. So I don't know if you're a mother or how old you are or anything like that, but it just looks like you've not owned it for yourself.
Yeah. She says, I thought yeast.
Oh, yeast. Oh,
I'm not sure. She's not sure.
Well, there's definitely foreign energy there. But from an energetic perspective, I see it almost like spread throughout the whole abdomen. I mean, I guess if it was yeast, that is something that could be affecting your gut as well as your female reproductive system. So sounds like a good theory to me. But energetically speaking, it looks like it has to do with foreign energy in your space and you not owning your body for yourself. Physically speaking, it could be yeast, but spiritually speaking, it's to do with ownership of your space. And when you think about it, yeast is some foreign thing that invades your space. So it can be to do with that exact same dynamic that you would develop a yeast infection, actually. So thanks for the question.
So this is a question from Lori. And Lori says, there seems to be a good evil dichotomy between COVID vaccinated folks and those who are unvaccinated. Some say this divide and conquer is going to get worse. Do you see that happening?
Okay, well, I'll comment on that. You can take the idea of the COVID vaccine, or you can take the idea of pretty much anything, you know, politics, religion, and so on. There's one group that's saying, you know, my philosophy is the correct one and yours is wrong, and vice versa. And what that is being stuck in polarity. That is being stuck in the good and evil, the right and wrong, and the judgment. And it is not seeing that in this world, every single one of us is unique and has a unique perspective. And there is no right and wrong. There's just a bunch of different perspectives. And so we will evolve in consciousness when we can reach a level of acceptance about that, you know, this is a person who believes in vaccination, and this is a person who doesn't believe in vaccination, and each one is welcome to their choice, and neither is right or wrong. It's just a unique individual perspective. And so humanity can be at one when they move into a state of acceptance of each other's differences, because we are not all the same. We are not meant to be the same. We never will be the same. Each one is a unique aspect of God. And so, you know, it's the recognition of those differences and the acceptance of those differences that get us out of this battle of light and dark and good and evil and so on. And so your question was, specifically about vaccination, and that one group judging the other. And what did she say? Do I see it sort of going into anarchy or something, or getting
Yeah,
worse?
the divide and conquer is going to get worse. Do you see that? Yeah.
Well, what I like to see is what I just talked about, is moving into a space of acceptance. And don't forget, what exists right now is what exists right now. And so any future I would predict would just be based on a timeline, a possible timeline. So what reality do you want to step into, Laurie? Do you want to step into a reality like that or not? I prefer not to. So I prefer to hold a vibration of acceptance and balance and harmony. And we've all got a choice to be able to do that, actually. So everyone's entitled to their own unique perspective and their own unique choice.
I think it just shows how it shows the fact that we are the world, the universe is a bipolar thing. You know, a dual concept. There's the good and evil we're talking about, and this is the vaxxers and the non-vaxxers, and it just and how our society is changing. 50 years ago, this argument wouldn't be there. People would just quietly go and stand and raise their sleeves. They may be thinking it, but in today's society, we're thinking more. We're looking at our own ideals and concepts out there and judging for ourselves what is right for ourselves, or thinking about that. I think that the issue that lies is this that's happening. Not the fact that some people want to be vaccinated and some people don't. I think it's the polarization that's happening because of it in society, in families, in groups, and just let it be what it can be. SG says, she wants to know how she can own her own body, in a continuation of what you said for her.
Okay. Well, through meditation, being grounded, being present, is how. A short answer to that question, learn to ground. That could be a short answer to that question. A long answer to that question is through meditation, exploring all the different parts of your body and looking at what other energies are present and eliminating the energies that are not you and replacing it with your energy. And there are energy techniques that you can use for that. And I teach those energy techniques in my classes. I have a very good course starting this week called Unlock Your Intuition that teaches those energy techniques.
Great. Okay, I have one more here. I'll give you 3 guesses who it's from. From Brian, he says, I believe it was Neil Donald Walsh who said, a candle cannot know its own light without the darkness.
Good point. Good point. And that's exactly, in a nutshell, what we're doing here in this polarity. We're knowing ourselves more deeply through the contrast that we experience in this world, which is based on opposites and duality and dark and light. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
No, that's very true. I mean, it's how do you know you're being good if you don't know what evil is? You know, how do you know what evil is unless you can see what people are being good? I mean, it's definitely a truth. And just the topic alone, to sit and think. I mean, sit and think, am I a good person? not a matter of judging yourself, but just the activity of thinking that and pondering it would help you to become, and I'm not saying a better person, but a better you, better you for yourself. And again, going into more love, and the more love you can experience, and doesn't matter what the love is for, the more love you can experience, the better off you are internally in your spiritual side. And the better you offer in your spiritual side, the better you offer on your physical side. And I think that would also help SG a little bit as well, that reflection of loving who she is as opposed to, who she isn't.
Yeah. If you meditate, you can discover who you really are.
Yeah.
And who you really are is ultimately is love.
True. And you are the best you are. Like it is at this point in time, you are the best you that you are, because this is who you are at this time. So I think that's close to it. And folks, if you enjoyed the show, please give us a thumbs up, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook. So we always like those rankings. It helps. And
do please give us some suggestions of what you would love us to talk about on the show. As you know, it's a show about metaphysics and spirituality, and we will cover any and all topics under that umbrella.
Yeah, I was thinking next week maybe looking at either auras or chakras again.
That would be great.
Yeah, we haven't done something on auras and chakras for a bit, so we can do that, and how they relate to psychic abilities.
Very.
That's it for this week, Dr. Leslie.
All right, thank you everyone for listening. You've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth, Dr. Leslie and Corey.
And we'll see you all next week. Bye now.
Bye.